Neighbor wants a free Dodge Challenger. This story happened many years ago when I was working with a renovation company. The company would buy very cheap homes, renovate them, and relist them for sale or rent them out. I guess you could call it a house flipping company. It was a new company with 3 guys on the construction crew, including the owner who was also the property manager, and a girl who I only met once or twice that dealt with paperwork. It was a really fun job, especially for me, because I would do the general labor like tearing down walls and removing carpet. Anyways, on this one job site we started on the house first and left the garage alone. This was a very poorly maintained property owned by a wealthy older man who was apparently incredibly overweight and in poor health. His girlfriend was a young foreign lady who loved the house and wanted to renovate it with the money the man would leave her, and his wife was a horrible lady who ended up taking the house and a lot of his savings, allegedly. The woman sold the property to my boss for a pretty low amount of money, and the girlfriend stopped by to look at the property when she saw the crew dropping off their tools. She went into the empty living room and cried. It was pretty sad, but it wasn't like we were going to give her the house for free because she was sad, and she couldn't afford to buy it. The boss also had no intention of renting out this property because he hated being a landlord because the tenants he had on his 3 properties were all very needy, and he had an incident where a TELUS employee destroyed one of his walls installing something that made him declare that he would never bother with renting out his properties ever again, so that he wouldn't have to deal with BS. We spent a few days working on the house, and when we got to the garden we prepared the fence to be removed so that we could set up a new fence. We went to the garage to see if there was anything valuable that we could sell or keep, and see what we needed to throw away. We found 3 cool things that we decided to keep. One was an antique fire extinguisher. It looked really cool. One was a very long and rusty plumbing snake, and the last thing was a 1970s Dodge Challenger. I don't know the year. Someone said it could have been a 1974, but I did a Google search, and it looked like it could have been 1971 or 1973. The car wasn't well maintained. Some teenagers broke into the garage and did some damage to the engine and stole a tire. They also destroyed some spray paint cans, leaving a mess to clean up, but it didn't affect the car. Plus, the owner had no idea the car was there, and he had no idea where the key to it was. The plan was to scrap the car. We did take a door from it and gave it to someone who was friends with the owner that wanted it. Edit. It's possible the tire was missing before the teens showed up, but we think they took a tire, then came back to take something else and or continue messing with the car. I didn't mention that the reason there was engine damage was because the car was pretty beat up in places, like it was smashed repeatedly with a hammer, which is where the damage to the engine came from. The boss knew it was teenagers because he saw them running away. The neighbor who appears in the next paragraph knew about the condition of the car, but he still wanted it. In fact, the condition was why he expected us to give it to him for free. The neighbor saw that we had opened the garage and decided to talk to us while we were sitting outside waiting for the boss to get back with some lunch for us. The neighbor seemed friendly until he brought up the car. He said that the neighbor had agreed to give him the car but passed away before he could, so we should give him the keys. We told him that we didn't have the keys, and the man's face got dark. It looked like he was angry with us, but he smiled and tried to convince us to give him the keys, and we told him we didn't have them. The guy left in a huff. The boss brought us our food. We told him what happened, and all was good. The next day we worked and a similar thing happened again, but this time the boss was there and explained to him that he didn't have the keys, and he didn't want the car, going as far as to tell the guy that he could hotwire it or tow it himself if he wanted it. The guy still thought we were lying and left. Later that day, when the rest of the crew had left and the boss was the only one there, the man appeared again and apparently got into a heated argument with my boss. My boss got so angry that he called a towing company and got them to tow it to a scrapyard while the guy watched, screaming and swearing at my boss. My boss then told him, "Don't bother my workers ever again or I will call the police." I heard about the incident the next day when I asked where the car was. We finished up the job almost without issues. If you're wondering, these were the issues we came across. One room in the house was wired up with extension cords in the walls. The vents weren't up to code. There was asbestos in the ceiling that had to be removed. We also had an encounter with some sketchy dealers that ended when the boss informed him that he had a side hustle years ago as one of the biggest dealers in the area and still had connections, which included being friendly with their boss who was a notorious M***th dealer known for being someone you didn't want to mess with. They left us alone after that. My boss was a multimillionaire, BTW. This entire business was just a fun side project for him where H